Hello, everyone. My name is Dan Calabrese. Welcome to the City Biz audience. We're glad you could join us today. And with us, we have the CEO of GreyOrange, Mr. Akash Gupta. Akash, thank you so much for being with us today.
Absolutely, Dan. Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. It's really interesting to find out more about what's going on with GreyOrange. GreyOrange is really at the forefront of AI driven robotics in centers and fulfillment centers worldwide. And there's a lot to get into as far as what's happening with the company, with the technology. So, Akash, first of all, I just want to ask you, where are you coming to from today? Where are you located?
Normally, I'm located in New York. Today, I'm in the Bay Area, but normally I'm located in New York.
Okay, good. This is I've really been looking forward to this because I know I've done some work supporting you with some writing through your friends at Lead Coverage, and such an interesting company. So where I'd like to get started, you announced in 2022 that you are making a commitment to be really robot hardware agnostic, which basically means the important thing is the software. You do continue to make robots, but it's the software that's really the key. Talk to us about how that's impacted your market and your customers to date.
Sure, sure. I think across number of years, a couple of things that we have realized is, and kind of I would say operating, very very large warehouses throughout the peak, is that there is difference between what we call as robotic uptime and fulfillment outcomes, right? You can always have robots running around, with 99% uptime, but that doesn't mean that's going to translate into real fulfillment outcomes which would be right improving SLAs or reducing cost per unit and likes of that. And across the years that we have done this, we realize that it's very very important to orchestrate and kind of figure out what's the right thing to do at the right time with the right agents, right? That is super important. And I think that's where we have got to the point where the role we are playing in the ecosystem is to ensure that we can orchestrate multiple different types of robotic technologies, and ensure that we get the right fulfillment outcome, from the robotic, uptime. And I think that's basically also helped us. I would say help a lot of customers scale this thing from 50 bot innovation project to like deploying 3,000 bots across the network. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I'm sure clients also appreciate the fact that you're not there to rep a particular brand or a particular company. That it's all about finding the best solutions to them because that gives them confidence that you're objective.
No, absolutely. I think you're spot on. There are two aspects, I think, which becomes critical from the client's perspective. One is that we're always kind of working with them to get the right solution, right, and get the right KPIs in place. And second important aspect that is becoming more and more relevant is that everybody is at different place in the overall automation journey, right? So we can start with simple automation solutions like pick assist and go to rack to person and more complex store to person and pick to box kind of solutions. So we are able to kind of help them and join them wherever they are in the journey rather than forcing like one heavy solution on them. And we have so many customers which have started with us and in pick assist and then move to rack to person and likes of that. So that's again a very important aspect of kind of joining them in where they are in the journey rather than pushing one solution that they are not ready for.
Right. What are the most important advancements right now in warehouse automation? And I guess maybe a second part of that question is what do the warehouse operators really need to understand about how to take advantage of these advances?
Yeah, I think couple of things. I think we are constantly seeing people moving from single process automation now to multiple process automations, right? Normally what normally people would do is just automate forward area pick and things like that. And sometimes what that was doing was that it was just shifting bottlenecks from one area of the warehouse to other area of the warehouse, right? So other thing that we are seeing now is people who are kind of maturing a little bit in automation is that they are thinking about end-to-end flexible automation across the processes, right? How deep storage to forward area movement is automated, how forward area is automated, how movement from picking to packing is automated in a flexible way, and things like that. So I think we're seeing a lot of traction on end to end automation using multiple robotic solutions within the same warehouse and stitched closely by orchestration system. And that, I think, is finally giving the significantly higher value for the customers, because then they can see everything stitched together and kind of moving at a certain consistency.
Is there a challenging education aspect for the operators then, to because when you're talking end to end, that's touching every part of the process for them. And are they able to keep up and understand that?
Yeah, and that's where the real aspect of difference between kind of running a robotic system and running a robotic system with a right orchestration software comes in. And this goes back to 2012, 2013, when we were thinking about this and starting this. One thing that we realized, and both me and my co-founder Samay, we spent almost 6 months just touring warehouses in early days. And I think we realized that there are two parts of automation that is needed, right? One is physical automation that you can very easily see and understand and likes of that. But there's another very important aspect of automation around decision making. What to do when, who to do when, and things like that. So, and hence, if you really want effective outcome about automation, you'll also have to automate decision making, right? And that's what gray matter or a good WBS is all about. Being able to automate decision making as well, because if you're gonna operate a robotic warehouse or an advanced robotics warehouse with still manual decision making, you're only going to get incremental benefits out of it, right? So I think this is I would say thought process that we are continuously sharing with our customers, that you cannot do half baked things. You can't change paradigm on one side and still operate the warehouse in the same way you used to operate manual warehouse, right? Because that's not going to give you the right benefit. You really need to automate the decision making, right, and automate the physical aspects of things to really get the holistic value out of this whole paradigm shift.
Sure. Now, as we advance with automation and things like digitization, one issue that I know we're working on this issue a lot is cybersecurity. And in cybersecurity, it's important at an enterprise level, but it's also important at an asset level. I mean, cyber attackers can hack a forklift, and they certainly are going to take aim at warehouse automation and warehouse robotics. What can you tell us about how GreyOrange is staying ahead of that issue?
Sure, sure. No, absolutely. I think it's a very relevant, topic and question at this point of time. And I think the first thing to, think about this is that you really need to think about any of your robotic or IoT asset as a literal normal node of your network, right? Because people think about IoT asset, robotic asset as a separate class of asset. No, I think today most of them run on regular Linux machines or embedded Linux machines, and they need to be considered very similar to your PCs and your network, kind of servers and things like that, right? So the first thing is basically considering them part of your regular nodes of networks, right? It's almost like you added 200 more edge nodes on your network. That's how we should think about it, right? Because these are all Linux based servers. Second is, I think at the end of the day, the network architecture needs to be designed in a very specific way, thinking about cybersecurity, right? All the good stuff that has been done on your regular network server side needs to be here, right? Making sure that you are you're compliant about things and likes of that. So network architecture design is also a very important piece in this whole thing, because normally earlier what people used to do is they would get bots and they would just connect them to your Wi-Fi like cell phones, right? And that's not how you want to do this, right? You want to design a good network architecture to kind of make sure that you're blocking the right ports, you're setting the right policies, and there's a particular way bot is communicating to the server, and likes of that. And third piece, I would say, just from overall network security perspective, is how you are providing that access, right? And again, I think there's a balance there. You can't get to the point where, say, okay, your solution provider will not have access, because that will harm your support, right? So there are ways of thinking about this where you can have fairly monitored restricted access,
Right.
right?
Multi-factor authentication and things like
Correct, correct, correct.
yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think those are some of the things. I would say there are very few companies who are kind of thinking about this at this point of time, and a lot of times this seems to like a, I would say, overload of complexity, because a lot of times robotics is already some level of complexity for companies, and then you add cybersecurity, and cybersecurity, safety and compliance, and robotics all together, like become sometimes overload, and that's why I think the we as solution providers in the ecosystem need to take that responsibility of handling all of this on our end and simplifying for the customer, so that they are not worried about it, but we within our architectures are kind of handling all these three complexities.
Right. Now, big picture, GreyOrange has just had a very successful round of fundraising, 135 million. Congratulations. That's a real success. And in order to get a funding round that successful, the investor community has to see something in you. Essentially, what do you think was the main thing that they saw that made them say, yes, we want to be part of this?
Sure, sure. I think across last, I would say 3 4 years, I think we were able to you know gain multiple customers that went from a 50 bot pilot to kind of deploying 3,000 bots in their network, right? So I think firstly, it's important for companies like us to make sure that they are no more in the pilot dimension, and they are really operating super large warehouses, mission critical warehouses for the customers. And I think last 3 years we have successfully done with tens of customers, starting small and kind of running multiple warehouses. And second thing, I think the value of the overall thought process, right? That at the end of the day, in the ecosystem, everybody will need multiple type of robotic technologies, and hence there is a very strong need of orchestration of these multiple technologies, to kind of scale and accelerate the adoption of automation. I think that principle have been validated multiple times, to the level that I would say last whatever 20 warehouses that we went live were all had more than one type of robotic agent, right? So I think that need has been validated. And third, I think third aspect that we spent time last 2.5 years is, within our journey we also added our overall portfolio to retail stores, because another principle that we are hypothesis we are working on is that as networks start becoming more and more omni-channel, right? You'll have to not restrict at just warehouses to think about omni-channel fulfillment and likes of that. You will have to think about stores and warehouses and micro fulfillment centers all together. And we released our kind of a retail store execution solution, G Store, which has kind of seen considerable growth across last 2 3 years. So I think those are two or three aspects that that kind of gave enough confidence to the to the investors to say, yes, this is a company. And um, I think lastly, which what I would call is pretty much deal closure, is we got to the point where in next 3 to 4 quarters we are getting to kind of EBITDA positive, cash flow positive, and things like that. So we have a fairly clear line of sight that how do we get to the other side of the curve.
Yeah, I mean, the investor community is always looking for growth. And there's no question that robotics is a growth industry. But I think the question is who's in it that understands where the growth is going and knows how to manage it. And the kinds of things you're talking about, that's showing that you're in that position. So that's clearly going to be much of the reason. Not to mention the fact that, like you said, you get into a positive cash flow position. So not only can you grow, but you can do well as you do. So great job on that. Let's get back a little bit to the concept of automating the automation, which is kind of a curious way of putting it. But I think we're basically just talking about deploying more sophisticated systems so the robots can achieve more. They have more efficiencies. There's more accuracy, and I think that probably one question that a lot of warehouse operators would have is like, yeah, I welcome the efficiency, I welcome the simplicity, but I'm the warehouse operator. I'm the one who has a sense of what the warehouse needs. So how do I make sure that the robots deploy that with my vision in mind?
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And I think we have been spending so much time on this since last 4 or 5 years. I think I remember our first large peak season was when we had like 4 or 5 warehouses with 300 bot plus, and I almost spent one full peak season in couple of those warehouses. And I think, when you're doing some of these advanced automation solutions, you in some way are taking control off from operations, right? Because in normal days they can just add more people, they feel a lot more in control. And I think what the path that we have gone towards is that, at the end of the day, I don't think they want control of every single thing, right? If you give them the right real-time visibility and methods to act upon exceptions if they want to, right? So the first thing is, how do you give them very strong real-time visibility, right? Making sure they understand what orders are getting prioritized, how resources are getting allocated, and things like that. That needs to be right on. Like, and we launched our command center kind of module 5 years back, which is like runs on 4 screens, gives you every single visibility of how your orders are doing, what your people are doing, what your robots are doing, what can you predict in terms of next few hours, what can breach, what cannot breach, and likes of that. Second aspect of it is, once they have this information, give them very simple tools to make exceptions. Like, it can be as simple as that. I should be able to select my 10 orders and tell system that don't worry about optimization in these 10 orders, just freaking go and pick them, right? And they should be able to just do it super quickly. And I think that, so giving detailed real-time visibility and giving very simple ways for them to override the system and do exceptions whenever they want. I think if we get these two things right, I think you win the confidence of the operations very, very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that makes a warehouse operator or probably anyone in supply chain feel empowered more than visibility. And you add into that, like you said, that simple power to put in the exceptions. And I think that really addresses what I was asking about. Um, let's talk a little bit about fulfillment and specifically how it continues to take on more of an omni-channel sort of character. How are you making sure that the software behind the automation keeps up with that trend?
Yeah, I think, one thing is that I think, thankfully, the DNA of GreyOrange and Grey Matter started when we all knew about omnichannel, right? So that is helpful because the core concepts, core data structures, core thought processes built for omnichannel, right? Today we run multiple facilities where retail inventory, e-commerce inventory, even wholesale inventory all remains in one single region, and capacity and throughput is completely fungible in real time between e-commerce and retail and wholesale, right? So I think one, I would say, advantage or fortunate advantage that we have is that when we started Gray Matter and thought process, we already knew about omnichannel, hence core basic structure is built for omnichannel, right? And then, of course, I think, some of these, if you look at our customers, most of these customers are strong proponent of omni-channel, and we did our first omni-channel warehouse back in 2019, right? So I think that, the push from the customers has also helped us mature that aspect of omni-channel, where you're thinking about, at the end of the day, what's happening is that your order line per order is basically varying a hell lot, right? That's pretty much what's happening, and your SLAs can continue to vary. But I think when you look at core design of gray matter, it is built to adopt to things very, very quickly, right? And I'll give you an example. Let's say today, you normally do, your earlier in the day you do a lot of retail, and then as kind of day passes you do start doing a lot of e-commerce. Let's say for whatever reason on the weekend it flips, right? The system is built to understand, okay, if my order lines per order are increasing, you will need less packing, and hence let's kind of redirect these orders to these pick stations which have better packing support versus these stations that have lesser packing support, right? So we are basically, at the end of the day, we are monitoring and self-learning. The system is learning across how the behavior of orders and things like that is changing, hour by hour and minute by minute, and then it's basically kind of making sure that whatever is possible can be done to kind of balance all of this. So I think that's how at least we are thinking about it.
And that's so interesting because when you talk about it learning and watching those trends, it does bring in this question of AI and machine learning and how much of that has to be programmed in right from the start versus the system's ability to learn it as it goes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think in current age and world, it's almost impossible to put a set of rules, because I think on day 30 most of them will become obsolete. So it's really important for system to kind of have short term, mid term learning capabilities and kind of behavior predictabilities, so that it can kind of do different actions in terms of where to keep inventory, what to prioritize first, and which stations, which orders to prioritize first. All of that can happen.
Great. No, we just got a few more minutes. I want to wrap up by asking you about an announcement you just made recently. And the announcement is of an end to end store execution, omni-channel retail management solution. It's called GStore. And as I understand it, you're using real time data from RFID overhead systems, provides retailers with 99% inventory accuracy, location precision within 3 to 5 feet. As far as I know, no other vendor has been successful in achieving that level of accuracy. Tell us a little more about GStore, and what does a standard of accuracy that high mean for inventories? And what does it mean in terms of the impact that GreyOrange is making on the retail
Sure,
industry?
sure, sure. No, absolutely. I think with G Store we have taken all our experience with dealing with sensory data and likes of that, and built really strong algorithms that take RFID, like overhead RFID data, and kind of gives you that kind of accuracy. So I think that's been amazing, and I think for kind of retailers today, right, having accurate inventory, right, is so important, because it finally kind of changes their top line. If you can really, and again, I think we have all realized that profitable e-commerce can only be done if you can have a good combination of warehouse and stores, ship from store, right? If you don't do this, your last mile cost keeps on racking higher and higher. So doing ship from store is almost necessary to have a profitable e-commerce business, right? Second aspect that we realized, that for most of these retailers, right, they had almost 10x the inventory in retail stores than they had in warehouses, right? And that inventory was not getting exposed to e-commerce customers, right? And similarly, they normally have 10x store associates than they have basically warehouse associates, right? So you're basically not utilizing such a large asset of inventory and people that is close to the customers to grow your fastest growing segment of your business, which is e-commerce, right? And GStore is all about how do you basically start utilizing inventory and this to e-commerce, but also start giving true omni-channel experience of somebody coming into the store still knowing where inventory is located, where a lot of times, and there's enough studies that are there where you can basically say that if I'm able to show my customer that if they come to the store, you will definitely have this product. Their footfall increases and things like that. And we have done so many of these experiments while kind of doing G Store, that it's at the end of the day, if you really want to give a true omni-channel experience to your consumer, having that level of visibility of inventory in store is almost necessary.
Yeah, I mean, just having the option of servicing e-commerce from in-store seems like it would be huge. But if you're not on top of inventory and you can't keep inventory accurate, there's no way you can do that without bringing about complete chaos. So clearly, this kind of innovation can be a real game changer for retail. So, congratulations on pulling that off. All your success to date. Really enjoying continuing to watch the impact that GreyOrange is making on the whole industry: supply chain, logistics, retailing, warehousing. Thanks so much for what you've done today, and Akash, thank you so much for being with us. Really enjoyed the conversation.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much, and it was an amazing conversation.
Okay. Everybody in the City Biz audience, thank you so much for being with us as well. I'm Dan Calabrese, and join us again for our next interview at a date coming up soon.